Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with Charm Stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Layla Parker stood at the threshold of the ornate gate, hands trembling slightly as she clutched her worn leather portfolio. The tall, wrought iron bars towered over her, an unspoken testament to the wealth of the man who lived within. She had never been this close to opulence before. Her journey here was marked by a restless night of tossing and turning, battling her fears of rejection. Now, as she pressed the intercom button, she could hardly believe she was about to enter the mansion of Damian Foster, a name that carried weight in every newspaper, business journal, and rumor mill. A woman's voice crackled through the intercom. Yes. Layla cleared her throat, willing confidence into her tone. My name is Layla Parker. I'm here about the cook position. After a pause that felt agonizingly long, the gates groaned as they swung open. Layla stepped inside, her worn flats pressing into the immaculate gravel driveway. Neatly trimmed hedges lined the path, and an elaborate fountain in the center of the courtyard sparkled under the late morning sun. Layla paused momentarily to admire the graceful statue at the fountain's center, a woman pouring water from an urn. There was something regal about it, a reminder that everything in this property seemed curated to impress. At the main entrance, a tall man in a crisp suit greeted her. He looked her up and down impassively. Right this way, he said, his clipped tone making it clear this was purely transactional. Layla followed him inside, entering the grand foyer. It was a space of marble floors and gilded frames. A wide, sweeping staircase led to upper levels, its banisters polished to a mirror-like shine. Expensive artwork lined the walls, landscapes, portraits, and abstract paintings that surely cost more than she'd make in a year. The hush of the house, broken only by the echo of their footsteps, heightened the weight of the moment. She was escorted through a side corridor and into a smaller, though no less opulent, study. There, at an enormous mahogany desk, sat Damian Foster. He was younger than Layla had imagined, likely in his early 30s, but with an air of command that seemed far more seasoned. He wore a tailored suit and exuded confidence in a way that made her feel small, even before he spoke. Damian glanced at her once, then returned his attention to a stack of papers. Sit, he said, voice low and curt, as if every moment of his time was too precious to waste. Layla eased into the chair opposite his desk. She noticed how his gaze seemed to dismiss her rather than welcome her. It sparked a flicker of resentment, but she reminded herself why she was here. She needed this job, desperately. Her younger brother, Chris, was only a few months away from starting college. Their parents were no longer around to support him. If she didn't secure stable employment, his dreams might remain just that, dreams. Damian spoke without preamble. I've reviewed your references from culinary school and from your previous employers. You seem capable. He folded his hands, scrutinizing her. But capability is not enough. My household runs on precision, discipline, and excellence. Can you deliver that? Layla nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. Yes, Mr. Foster. I take pride in my work, and I'm prepared to meet any challenge. He snorted softly, as if doubting her words. I see. My staff quarters are in the East Wing. You'll live there, and you'll be on call most of the day. If I host a last-minute business dinner or social gathering, I'll expect immediate service. Understood. Layla paused for only a second before replying. Understood. His eyes narrowed, testing her sincerity. Chef Barlow, who oversaw my kitchen for many years, recently retired. You'll be stepping into big shoes. I won't tolerate mediocrity. If you can't meet my standards, you're out. Layla swallowed. I'm ready. Damian's lips thinned. Then he looked away, as though bored. Smith, he gestured at the man in the suit, will show you around. You start tomorrow morning. A surge of relief mingled with anxiety coursed through her. She stood, thanked him, and let Smith guide her through the vast corridors. They passed several rooms, an extravagant dining hall, a lounge area with plush velvet sofas, and numerous locked doors. It all felt surreal, like stepping into a magazine spread. Yet the atmosphere was frosty. Not a staff member stopped to greet her. Maids hurried by, eyes downcast, and the butlers seemed consumed with tasks she couldn't even identify. Finally, they arrived at the kitchen, a spacious area outfitted with gleaming stainless steel counters and state-of-the-art appliances. Even under the harsh fluorescent lights, it was easy to see how pristine everything was. This would be her domain, her new stage for creativity. She felt a hint of excitement quell her nerves. A short while later, Smith led her to her room in the staff quarters. It was small and sparsely furnished, just a single bed, a desk, and a narrow closet, but it would be her home for the foreseeable future. As she set her modest bag on the bed, she recalled the house's opulence. The disparity stung a bit. But she shook off any sense of injustice, reminding herself she wasn't here for luxury. She was here for her brother's future. Later that evening, once she'd settled in, Layla pulled out her phone and dialed Chris's number. He answered on the second ring, sounding out of breath. "Layla," he said brightly. "How'd it go?" She told him everything. The imposing mansion, the brief and intimidating interview with Darian, the staff quarters. "It's a different world in here," she said, glancing around her room. "But I got the job. I start tomorrow." "That's great," Chris said, excitement lacing his words. "Now I can worry less about scholarships and part-time jobs. Are you sure it's not too much pressure on you?" She forced a laugh. "I'll manage. Don't worry about me. Just focus on keeping those grades up, okay?" He promised he would, and they talked a bit longer about his upcoming exams before hanging up. Sitting alone on the edge of the bed, Layla felt a flood of relief wash over her, mingled with a nervous energy about the new chapter she was beginning. Her shoulders ached from tension, but beneath it all flickered a spark of hope. This job could be the turning point she needed, and she was determined not to fail. That night, she laid awake in the unfamiliar bed, the hush of the mansion enveloping her in an uneasy calm. The faint glow of a hallway light crept beneath her door. She wondered what the future held in a place where staff were invisible yet expected to be perfect. As sleep finally claimed her, she clutched her phone, a picture of her smiling brother on the screen serving as a reminder that she wasn't just cooking for an arrogant billionaire, she was cooking for her family's future. The next morning, Layla rose before dawn, slipping into the crisp uniform that had been left in her closet. Dark slacks, a white jacket, and a neat apron. She felt like a professional, though she wore none of the bravado she might have if this were her own kitchen. Stepping out, she found the corridor silent, the air tinged with the faint scent of cleaning products. Her first stop was the main kitchen. She flicked on the lights, the stainless steel surfaces gleaming at her. A quick survey told her everything was organized meticulously, baking trays stacked by size, spices labeled in alphabetical order, and pans hung on a rack with military precision. Chef Barlow, the previous head cook, had clearly run a tight ship. Layla rolled up her sleeves and began checking the pantry, the fridge, and the walk-in freezer, familiarizing herself with the vast inventory. She noted an abundance of fresh produce, choice cuts of meat, imported cheeses. No expense was spared in stocking this kitchen. Her mind buzzed with possibilities, countless recipes swirling in her thoughts. Her first task of the day was to prepare breakfast for Darian. Smith, the butler, had told her the night before that Darian expected a light meal at precisely 7 a.m., not a minute earlier or later. They offered no other instructions, leaving her to guess his preferences. She decided to go with something classic but refined, a folded omelet with sautéed mushrooms and herbs, freshly squeezed orange juice, and a small side of sliced fruit. By the time 7 a.m. rolled around, she had the omelet plated, garnished with a light drizzle of truffle oil, and ready for transport on a gleaming silver tray. A maid whose name Layla hadn't yet learned arrived to take the tray to Damian's private dining room. Layla watched her go with a mix of anticipation and dread. Would Darian approve? Minutes later, the maid returned with the tray. The plate looked barely touched. Layla's heart sank. "Is there something wrong?" she managed to ask quietly. The maid hesitated. "Mr. Foster just said he wasn't hungry anymore. He left for his morning meeting." Layla's shoulders stiffened, disappointment flashing across her face. She forced a smile at the maid, then took the tray back. She reminded herself not to take it personally. Darian Foster was a busy man. Perhaps he changed his mind often. Yet a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that her efforts had been dismissed without a thought. As the day went on, she prepared lunch, dinner, and even late-night snacks for the staff. She quickly learned that Darian often skipped meals entirely or ate them in his office. No one seemed to question his habits, and no one congratulated her on her cooking either. The staff interactions were polite but distant. The other maids and butlers had their own cliques, and there was an unspoken hierarchy she hadn't deciphered yet. Occasionally, she'd overhear fragments of conversation in the hall. "Did you see Mr. Foster's new business deal in the paper?" "Yes." "Another merger. He'll be even busier now. He's always been that way. I heard he rarely sleeps, just works." Layla found it ironic that she was in this house, pouring her creativity into elaborate dishes, yet her main audience was almost never present. Darian was a specter, breezing in and out for business, too busy to dine properly. The staff ate her meals, but they offered little more than curt thanks before rushing off to their duties. By her third day, she tried introducing a personal touch: freshly baked croissants in the morning, a fragrant pot of coffee prepared with exotic beans from the storeroom. She arranged them beautifully, hoping it might catch Darian's eye. But each time, either a maid returned with the untouched items or a staff member simply devoured them before clearing the tray, delivering no feedback. A subtle frustration began gnawing at Layla. She reminded herself that this was precisely what she'd signed up for: a cook's job in a wealthy household. She tried to take pride in creating something beautiful even if no one seemed to appreciate it. However, the coldness of the mansion made her feel invisible, as though she existed only in the swirl of steam rising from the soup pots. One evening, around 9 p.m., she finally finished cleaning the kitchen and decided to step out onto a small terrace for some air. The night was cool, stars just visible above the distant city lights. She leaned against the railing, letting the quiet envelop her. For a moment, she allowed herself to daydream about a small bakery of her own, where people came in to enjoy her pastries, where warm chatter and the scent of cinnamon filled the air. Her musings were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. She turned to see a maid named Catherine approaching. Catherine was one of the few staff members who occasionally offered Layla a sympathetic smile. "Hey," Catherine greeted softly. "Long day." Layla managed a laugh. "Long week, and it's only Wednesday. How do you do this day in and day out?" Catherine shrugged. "I've been here for almost a year. You get used to it. Mr. Foster isn't exactly the friendliest boss, and the staff keep to themselves." Layla sighed. "I feel so out of place. Does Mr. Foster ever show a more human side?" Catherine pursed her lips. "Occasionally, he'll say something decent if you do your job perfectly. But most of the time, he's distant. Some staff think he's all about the numbers, not people. I heard rumors that his father was even harsher, and maybe Darian picked up his ways." As Catherine turned to leave, she added, "Don't let it get to you. You're actually a very good cook. I mean it, I've tasted your meals. Don't lose your passion just because he doesn't see you." Layla felt a flicker of gratitude. "Thank you, Catherine." With that, the maid disappeared back into the mansion, leaving Layla alone with her thoughts. She gazed up at the sky once more, the mild comfort of Catherine's words soaking into her. Perhaps, she thought, not everyone here was as cold as the marble floors. Nevertheless, the feeling of isolation remained. Each day, she delved deeper into her work, perfecting sauces, marinating meats overnight, decorating pastries with delicate icing flowers. She busied herself so thoroughly that she collapsed into bed each night too exhausted to think. But each dawn, she faced the same quiet dismissal from staff and the same utter absence of recognition from Darian. Yet in her heart, she held on to the flicker of her dream, a dream of a bakery that would make people smile. And so, despite the mansion's freezing politeness, she resolved to endure. Chris was counting on her. The possibility of saving enough money to help him attend college sustained her. If Darian Foster's house was cold, she would be the warmth hidden in the kitchen, cooking up hope one dish at a time. It was nearly 2 weeks since Layla's arrival when the first real confrontation with Darian happened. Layla was preparing dinner: pan-seared salmon with lemon butter sauce, roasted vegetables, and a creamy risotto. She meticulously plated each dish for the household staff, ensuring a professional finish even though she suspected the staff wouldn't fully appreciate such detail. Just as she was sliding the last dish onto a tray, the kitchen door flew open. Darian entered, his presence as sudden as a thunderbolt. He was dressed in a sleek black suit, tie slightly askew, hair ruffled as if he'd been running his hands through it all day. He cast a quick glance around the kitchen, his gaze finally landing on Layla. "You cook," he said bluntly. "I have a meeting in an hour with potential clients. I want hors d'oeuvres ready by then, something light, impressive, quickly done." Layla set down her spoon. "An hour, sir? I'm in the middle of dinner service." Damian's eyes narrowed. "Then multitask. Or delegate. But I need those appetizers ready. We don't keep guests waiting." "Understood." His tone was sharp, and the implicit threat that any hesitation might jeopardize her job was clear. Layla swallowed, nodding. "Yes, Mr. Foster." He studied her for a second longer, as if doubting her competence. Then, without another word, he turned and left, the door swinging shut behind him. Layla's pulse hammered. She took a deep breath, scanning the kitchen. She was the only one in charge here. There was no sous chef to pass tasks on to. She had to prepare the staff dinner plates as well as new appetizers in under an hour. Her mind raced through possible options, something quick yet refined enough to impress. She settled on miniature quiches with sun-dried tomatoes, goat cheese, and fresh basil, plus smoked salmon canapés garnished with dill. She moved rapidly, stowing the newly finished plates in the warming cabinet for the staff's dinner. Then she rolled out pastry dough for the mini quiches, portioning them into a muffin tin. Her heart pounded as the clock ticked away. She whipped up the egg mixture, folded in the sun-dried tomatoes and goat cheese, and slid the tin into the oven. Meanwhile, she sliced thin pieces of smoked salmon, placed them on petite crackers with a dollop of herbed cream cheese, and garnished each with a sprig of dill. 30 minutes in, the quiches were nearly done. She rummaged for a nice serving platter, placed a doily on it, and began arranging the canapés. After another few frantic minutes, the quiches emerged from the oven. Golden, aromatic, perfect. She carefully placed them alongside the canapés, checking the time. 5 minutes to spare. Her shirt clung to her back with sweat, but she managed a small smile of triumph. Just then, Darian returned, accompanied by Smith. He glanced at the spread on the counter. "Those are it?" he asked curtly. Layla stepped forward, wiping her brow. "Yes, sir. Mini quiches with goat cheese and sun-dried tomatoes, and smoked salmon canapés. They'll stay fresh for the duration of your meeting." Darian studied them with a cool expression. For a moment, Layla hoped for a nod of approval, or even the briefest sign of satisfaction. Instead, he turned to Smith. "Have these delivered to the parlor. Serve them immediately. And make sure the drinks are ready." Smith nodded and whisked the platter away. Layla found herself alone with Darian, tension thick in the air. She wanted to speak, maybe ask if there was anything else he required, but words seemed futile. Darian gave the kitchen one more cursory glance before turning to leave. But halfway out the door, he stopped. His gaze flicked over the warming cabinet. "Dinner for the staff?" Layla nodded. "Yes, I just finished preparing their plates." "Next time," Darian said, voice low, "you'll prioritize my guests over the staff's meals." Layla's cheeks burned. "Of course, Mr. Foster. I meant no disrespect." He didn't respond, simply walked out. When the door closed behind him, Layla let out a shaky exhale, the stress coiling in her neck finally loosening. A few minutes later, she tiptoed to the corridor to see if she could catch a glimpse of how the guests were reacting to her appetizers. She didn't dare intrude, so she lingered near the parlor door. Through the gap, she could hear murmurs. "These are quite lovely. I must say, the salmon is exquisite." A surge of validation warmed her chest. She might not receive direct praise from Darian, but at least his guests appreciated her cooking. She returned to the kitchen to tidy up, a tiny sense of pride stealing over her. That sense of pride, however, was short-lived. The next morning, she found a note in the kitchen, presumably from Darian. "Next time, serve caviar. We have a stock of fine beluga in the cooler. Make your choices more suitable for high-end clients." "No thank you." No acknowledgement of her ingenuity under pressure. Just another command. She clenched her jaw, fighting a wave of frustration. Yet she pushed it down, reminding herself that she had to be grateful for a job that paid well. This was her chance to secure Chris's future. But each day after that incident, the pressure mounted. Darian demanded specialized meals on short notice, or criticized a minor detail, a garnish placed incorrectly, a sauce that didn't meet his expectations. Each reprimand chipped away at Layla's confidence. One afternoon, she was simmering a delicate beurre blanc sauce for Damien's lunch. After plating the dish, pan-seared scallops with fresh herbs, she carefully set it on a tray. Smith took it away, and Layla found herself wringing her hands, hoping for once that Darian might eat it rather than let it sit. When the tray returned, empty except for the plate, relief blossomed. She nearly smiled. At least he'd eaten everything. But attached to the plate was another note. Sauce was too salty. Layla inhaled sharply, tasting the leftover sauce in the pan. It was, to her palate, perfectly seasoned. She frowned. Was he simply finding any excuse to criticize her? Did he truly taste salt that wasn't there, or was his palate unreasonably sensitive? The seed of resentment lodged itself deeper in her thoughts. She dreamed of the day she could stop cooking at his beck and call, free to open her own bakery. But until then, she endured. That evening, while she was scrubbing pans, the door to the kitchen swung open again. Darian entered. An ominous expression etched into his features. His phone was in his hand, and he was tapping angrily at it. "Tomorrow," he said without greeting, "I'm hosting a dinner for a visiting business partner. Very important to seal a deal. I want a 5-course meal, amuse-bouche, soup, main course, palate cleanser, dessert. All top-notch. We must impress." "Understood." Layla set down her sponge, meeting his gaze. "I understand. Do you have any specific preferences for the menu? Use the caviar. Use the finest cuts of meat. And make sure there's a show-stopping dessert." He pocketed his phone and stepped closer, looming over her. "No mistakes, Parker. My business deal depends on it." She stiffened at his harsh tone. "I'll do my best." His eyes flickered, perhaps noting the quiet confidence in her voice, but he turned abruptly on his heel. "I certainly hope so. Now get some rest. You'll need it." After he left, Layla stared at the gleaming counters. She felt trapped in the tension that had become her daily existence, each day a tightrope walk between satisfying his lofty expectations and preserving her own dignity. The extra money, plus free lodging, was a godsend for Chris's tuition, but at what cost to her soul? As she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, sleep eluded her. She wondered if tomorrow's dinner might finally earn a sliver of respect from Darian. Even just a word of thanks. She clung to that fragile hope, determined that no matter how harshly he treated her, she would prove her worth through her cooking. Little did she know, the dinner would soon become a mere footnote in the storm that loomed ahead. When Layla finished the 5-course dinner the following evening, exhaustion weighed down her limbs. She had been up since dawn, hand-selecting ingredients, preparing precise garnishes, and arranging the kitchen staff to assist her with prep. Despite the tension, the dinner went off without a hitch, or so she believed. The guests seemed to enjoy each course, from the delicate amuse-bouche of caviar on creme fraiche to the finale of a chocolate mousse cake adorned with spun sugar. Layla took a moment to breathe after Smith wheeled out the final dessert cart. Rather than simply collapse into her room, she decided to unwind by indulging in her secret passion, sketching dessert designs. She retrieved a small notebook from her bag, the cover worn from years of use, and sat at the stainless steel island. Opening to a blank page, she let her imagination roam free. Her pen glided over the paper, outlining an intricate layer cake topped with delicate sugar sculptures. She made notes on flavors: lavender-infused cream, lemon curd, white chocolate drizzle. Next, she sketched a series of petit fours, each shaped like a tiny blossom, dusted with edible shimmer. In this creative space, her mind felt free. No demands from Darian, no reminders of her subordinate status. Just the sweet possibility of new confections. Engrossed in her work, she barely heard the door open. The click of approaching footsteps made her glance up. There stood Catherine, the friendly maid, eyeing her drawings with wide-eyed admiration. "Wow," Catherine breathed, stepping closer. "Those look amazing. Are these your own designs?" Flustered, Layla nodded and quickly closed the notebook. "Yes, just doodles. I like to invent new dessert ideas." Catherine's expression sparked with genuine excitement. "They don't look like mere doodles. They're beautiful. Do you ever make them in real life?" Layla gave a self-conscious shrug. "Sometimes. But usually I don't have time. And here, I'm afraid if I experiment too much, Mr. Foster might not like it. He has pretty strict tastes." Catherine sighed. "That's a shame. You've got real talent." She paused, glancing toward the door as if checking they were alone, then lowered her voice. "You know, if you ever decide to open a bakery, I'm sure people would flock to you." "I would for sure." Warmth spread through Layla's chest. She hadn't expected such encouragement. "Thank you," she murmured. "It's been my dream for a while. Well, there are financial issues. And my brother's college tuition. So for now, this job is the priority." Catherine nodded sympathetically. "I get it. I have younger siblings, too. My paycheck here helps them back home. But don't give up on your dreams, okay?" They chatted a bit more, Catherine telling Layla about her hometown, a sleepy village where her parents ran a small shop. Layla felt a stirring of gratitude for Catherine's openness. Genuine conversations were rare in the mansion's cold corridors. Eventually, Catherine left to finish her duties, and Layla returned to her sketches, her heart lighter. That night, after all was quiet, she carefully packed away her notebook and rummaged through the kitchen for some leftover pastry dough. She rolled it out, shaping tiny tart shells, then filled them with a tangy passion fruit curd she'd made earlier in the day. It was a small personal project. No one had asked for it, and it wouldn't be on any official menu. But as she popped them into the oven, she felt a small thrill. Creativity, for its own sake, gave her solace. While the tarts baked, she drifted into a soft memory, standing in her mother's modest kitchen, learning to bake cookies. She remembered the sweet smell of vanilla and brown sugar, the warmth of the oven in contrast to a snowy winter outside. Memories like these fueled her passion, reminding her that cooking was more than a job. It was an art form that linked the present to her cherished past. When the tarts emerged, their delicate aroma wafting through the kitchen, she carefully placed them on a cooling rack. She took one timid bite, and a blissful smile crept across her face. This was why she cooked. As the weeks passed, each day followed a similar pattern. Grueling hours, near-constant demands from Darian, tension in the house. Yet late at night, after official duties ended, Layla snatched quiet moments to scribble new dessert concepts in her notebook or test a small batch of pastries. She began to see these personal projects as tiny victories, a reminder that her culinary journey was her own, even if overshadowed by Damian's expectations. She also established a tentative friendship with Catherine and a few other staff members who, over time, warmed up to her. There was Henry, the stoic gardener, who praised her lunches whenever she ventured outside. There was Amanda, the shy laundry maid, who giggled when sampling Layla's leftover pastries. Their support buoyed her spirits, though none of them could shield her from the daily storms of Damian's demands. A pivotal moment came one afternoon when Layla was testing a new sauce, an orange honey glaze meant to drizzle over seared duck. She'd carefully tweaked the proportions and was tasting it, eyes closed in concentration, when the kitchen door suddenly flung open. In walked Damian, flanked by 3 men in suits. They stopped short upon seeing Layla in mid-taste. Damian's mouth tightened. "Gentlemen, this is my cook, Miss Parker," he said in a dismissive tone. "She handles all the meals here." Layla quickly set down her tasting spoon, heart thudding. One of the men, older and graying at the temples, stepped forward with interest. "Miss Parker, is it?" he said, eyeing the sauce. "Might we have a taste?" Damian shot Layla a pointed glare that practically screamed, "Don't embarrass me." Layla calmly cleared her throat. "Certainly, sir," she said. She hurried to grab fresh spoons, offering a small sample to each man. They tasted, exchanging murmurs of approval. The older man closed his eyes briefly, savoring the blend of sweet orange and floral honey. "Delicious," he pronounced. "Reminds me of a dish I had in Provence once." Layla's cheeks warmed. Thank you. It's still a work in progress. Darian, appearing impatient, gave a curt nod to the men. If you're satisfied, shall we continue the house tour? They moved on, leaving Layla with a quickening pulse. She caught the tail end of a comment from one of the men, praising her technique, and it felt like a refreshing breeze in a stifling room. That tiny moment of recognition kept her spirits up for days. It proved that her talent was real and valued, even if it was overshadowed by Damien's dismissiveness. Little by little, she felt her confidence grow. She started preparing more creative dishes, incorporating influences from her nights of experimentation. She took pride in plating each dish with flair, pouring her heart into every meal. On the surface, Darian continued to find fault with trivial details. He scolded her for using too strong a herb in a stew or for arranging a garnish too flamboyantly. But underneath it all, Layla sensed that he recognized her skill, even if he never admitted it. Late one evening, she was in her small room, flipping through her recipes on her bed. Her phone rang, displaying Chris's name. She answered eagerly, and her brother's excited voice spilled over the line. "Guess what, sis? I just got accepted to the university program I really wanted." Layla's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, Chris! That's amazing!" They talked in hushed excitement. Chris mentioned financial aid possibilities and scholarship offers. Still, there would be expenses, books, housing, and more. As he rambled on about orientation dates and future plans, Layla's eyes welled with tears. All the hours, the stress, the subtle humiliations. Maybe they would all be worth it if she could help him achieve his dreams. When they hung up, she stared at her reflection in the small mirror across the room. Her eyes were red, but a smile lingered on her lips. She whispered to herself, "I can do this." In that quiet moment, she felt more determined than ever. She would endure the icy household, Damien's constant criticisms, the lonely hours, because each day brought her closer to a future where she could stand on her own 2 feet, proud of what she'd accomplished, and maybe, just maybe, run a bakery of her own. A month later, on a bright Monday morning, the entire household buzzed with an unusual energy. The staff moved about with heightened urgency, polishing silver, scrubbing floors, arranging fresh flowers in every corner. Layla noticed an uptick in supply orders to the kitchen, exquisite ingredients that made her eyebrows rise in surprise. Lobster tails, premium cuts of Wagyu beef, crates of exotic fruits. Something big was in the works. She finally learned the reason when she noticed a pinned memo on the staff's bulletin board. "Attention all staff. Mr. Foster will host a high-profile business gala next Saturday evening. Expected attendance. Over 100 influential guests from the business, political, and social spheres. This is a mandatory event for all household employees. Full compliance with Mr. Foster's instructions is required." Layla's stomach fluttered. 100 guests was no small feat. She stared at the note, rereading the words high-profile and mandatory as they blurred in her mind. She already felt the stress mounting. This would be the largest event she'd ever handled single-handedly. Could she pull it off? She spent the following days in a whirlwind of planning. She meticulously crafted menus, hors d'oeuvres, a buffet spread, carving stations, dessert assortments. She placed orders with local suppliers, carefully selecting produce and meats. Her old culinary textbooks sat open on every surface as she revisited large-batch cooking strategies. She barely slept, scrawling down diagrams of the buffet layout and making checklists for every dish. Midweek, she was finalizing the dessert table plan when Darian strode into the kitchen, wearing a sleek charcoal suit and a grim expression that suggested he had more on his mind than just food. "Parker," he called, tapping a manicured finger on the counter to get her attention. She turned swiftly. "Yes, Mr. Foster? I've decided on a slight change of plans for the gala." His voice was calm but carried the edge of authority. "The meal will be served in a buffet style, yes. But for dessert, I want a special presentation. Something new, something that's never been done in my house before." "Understood." Layla tried to steady her nerves. "Yes, sir. I've been working on an assortment of cakes, tarts, and pastries. I have a few new recipes I've been experimenting with. I think they'll be unique." He nodded curtly. "Good. Also, you'll be in the ballroom, personally serving certain dishes to the guests." She blinked, heart skipping a beat. Typically, the serving staff handled front-of-house duties. She was always in the kitchen. I'm sorry, Mr. Foster, but I thought the servers—" Damian cut her off with a raised hand. "No. I want you out there. People enjoy interacting with the one who created the food. It adds a certain chef's flair to the event." Layla stared, uncertain. She'd rarely served in front of large crowds, especially not an elite group of business moguls. Her insides twisted at the thought. She preferred the quiet domain of her kitchen, where she could let her culinary art speak for itself. Seeing her hesitation, Damian added with a faint sneer, "Don't worry, Parker. You'll do fine. As long as you can handle the pressure. This gala must be perfect. My reputation depends on it." She swallowed hard, forcing composure into her voice. "I understand." He arched an eyebrow. "Then get to it." With that, he stalked off, leaving a swirl of cologne in his wake. Layla slumped against the counter, her mind buzzing. The notion of serving the dessert herself, it felt more like a test or, worse, a setup for humiliation if she failed. She had never been in the spotlight before. Late that night, Catherine stopped by the kitchen to replenish the parlor's tea service. Layla confided in her, voice trembling slightly. "He wants me to serve the desserts in front of everyone." Catherine paused, placing a tray of teacups on the counter. "Really? That's unusual. Are you okay?" Layla shook her head. "I'm not sure. I can handle the cooking, but presenting it to all those powerful people, trying to navigate small talk. I'm terrified I'll say or do something wrong." Catherine gave a reassuring smile. "But think of it this way. It's also a chance to show them your talents, to let them see the real mind behind the menu." Her eyes lit up. "You're good, Layla. Believe in yourself." Layla mustered a smile. "I'll try." The days leading up to the gala were a blur. Deliveries arrived in droves. Layla and the kitchen staff spent hours organizing crates of vegetables, trimming meats, and storing cheeses. She wrote out timelines, planning each cooking step to ensure the food was fresh when served. The staff lounge was abuzz with talk of the event. Some maids fretted over new uniforms, while the butlers speculated about the guests who would show up. Layla overheard snatches of conversation. "They say a top fashion designer will attend. I heard the mayor's been invited too. Mr. Foster's trying to prove something big, I bet." On the eve of the gala, she was in the kitchen until well past midnight, triple-checking every recipe and marinade. She arranged the dessert table in her mind, envisioning how each platter would look. Her eyelids drooped, but her determination was fierce. This was her moment, even if it also felt like a setup for potential failure. Finally, she collapsed into bed in the early hours of the morning, forcing herself to catch a few hours of sleep. As she drifted off, she wondered if Damian truly wanted to highlight her culinary gifts or if he had another motive. Perhaps a twisted plan to put her on display and watch her squirm. The question echoed in her tired mind, fueling both fear and resolve. The day of the gala arrived, bringing a flurry of last-minute preparations. Florists bustled about, setting up lavish arrangements. The housekeeping staff polished floors and windows until they shone. A small orchestra arrived in the afternoon to rehearse their set list in the grand ballroom, their music echoing through the corridors. In the kitchen, Layla marshaled her resources like a general preparing for battle. She assigned tasks to the junior staff, one on sauce duty, another plating cold appetizers, another slicing fruit for the dessert table. By 5 p.m., the savory courses were well underway. Prime rib roasts and salmon fillets baked in the ovens, while side dishes simmered on the stoves. The aroma was mouth-watering, yet the pressure was immense. At 6:30 p.m., the first guests began to trickle in, their laughter and chatter filtering through the house. Layla took a moment to breathe, pressing a trembling hand to her apron. She glanced at her reflection in a stainless steel cabinet. Her chef's coat was spotless, her hair pulled back neatly. Anxiety coiled in her stomach, but she steeled herself. By 7 p.m., the buffet was laid out, staff stationed at each section to carve meats and replenish trays. Guests in elegant attire glided about, sampling delicacies. From her vantage point just inside the kitchen, Layla spotted top executives she recognized from magazine covers, local politicians with forced smiles, and a smattering of celebrities decked out in jewels. Her moment in the spotlight came when the clock struck 8 p.m. The staff began ushering everyone to the dessert station in the side of the ballroom. Catherine gave Layla a small nod and mouthed, "You've got this." Layla stepped forward, heart hammering in her chest. The station was lit by soft overhead lights that highlighted an array of confections she had meticulously crafted: petit fours, fruit tarts, mini eclairs, and a glorious multi-layered mousse cake studded with edible gold flakes. Darian stood at the periphery, sipping a glass of champagne. His eyes zeroed in on Layla, a faint smirk curling his lips. She swallowed, determined not to let him see her fear. Gathering her courage, she spoke in a clear, steady voice that carried over the gentle hum of conversation. "Good evening, everyone. My name is Layla Parker, and I'm the cook here. I'd like to introduce our dessert selection tonight. Each piece is crafted with fresh, high-quality ingredients, and I hope you'll enjoy the flavors as much as I enjoyed creating them." Heads turned, and a small crowd drew closer. She heard murmurs of approval at the sight of the pastries. Encouraged, Layla went on to describe each dessert, highlighting unique touches. These petit fours feature a lavender-infused sponge, paired with a light lemon cream. The fruit tarts are topped with berries from a local farm. This chocolate mousse cake has layers of dark chocolate ganache and hazelnut praline. She glanced at Darian. His expression was unreadable, but the guests seemed enamored. Some asked questions about the ingredients. Others murmured that they'd never seen such refined presentation. Emboldened, Layla stepped closer to the table, taking a small knife to slice the mousse cake. One older woman in a dazzling silver gown approached with delight shining in her eyes. "My dear, these are gorgeous. Have you been a pastry chef for long?" Layla smiled, cheeks flushing slightly. "I trained in culinary school, but I've always loved baking. It's my passion." Nearby, a well-known food critic raised an eyebrow as he sampled a petit four. "You have a very delicate touch. This is exceptional pastry work." Layla's heart soared. She didn't expect such direct praise from a critic. She bowed her head graciously. "Thank you. That means a lot." As word spread among the guests, more people crowded around, praising her confections. Layla's initial nervousness gave way to excitement. She showed them how the eclairs were filled, discussed flavor profiles, and made genuine connections with a few potential contacts. Her face glowed with pride as she realized her desserts were the evening's showstopper. That was when Darian decided to step in. He glided over, commanding attention simply by being present. "Ladies and gentlemen, I must say, Ms. Parker is quite the culinary surprise, isn't she?" His tone was syrupy, but his expression remained cool. "Perhaps we should see just how she crafts these desserts. Wouldn't it be entertaining if she prepared something fresh, right here, for everyone to witness?" Layla's pulse tripped. He hadn't warned her about any live demonstration. A hush fell as the guests exchanged intrigued glances. The idea of cooking on the spot for 100 discerning elites made her stomach churn. One guest, a flamboyant socialite, clapped her hands. "Oh, how marvelous! A live dessert demonstration." Layla forced a smile, heart pounding. This felt like a trap, Darian's way of testing whether she'd crumble under pressure. She squared her shoulders. She would not fail. "Certainly," she said, voice pitched steady. "I'll prepare a quick flambéed fruit dish. It can be done swiftly and served warm with ice cream." The guests murmured excitedly, forming a semicircle around a portable cooking station that the staff quickly wheeled out. Darian stepped back, observing with an inscrutable gaze. Meanwhile, Catherine discreetly hustled to fetch the ingredients Layla requested: sliced peaches, butter, sugar, a dash of cinnamon, and brandy. Taking a deep breath, Layla ignited the portable burner. In a pan, she melted butter, swirling in sugar and a hint of cinnamon until the mixture caramelized. The crowd watched, enraptured by the sizzle and sweet aroma wafting through the air. Layla narrated each step, drawing them in. "I like to let the sugar reach a golden hue before adding the peaches, so they develop that deep flavor." When she added the peach slices, a tantalizing hiss filled the air. She gently stirred, letting them soften in the caramel. Then came the critical moment. She poured in a shot of brandy and tilted the pan. Flames leapt up dramatically, eliciting gasps from the audience. The fruity, buttery aroma intensified, swirling around them. As the flames subsided, she spooned the warm peaches onto small plates. A staff member hurried in with scoops of vanilla ice cream. Layla topped each dish with a sprinkle of chopped nuts for texture, then handed them out to the nearest guests. They tasted, and the audible sighs of pleasure that followed were enough to make Layla's own eyes sting with gratitude. Applause broke out, soft at first, then more enthusiastic. Her cheeks heated as she took a small bow, adrenaline zinging through her veins. It was a moment she would never forget, being recognized for her skill in front of such a lofty audience. Darian, sensing the crowd's delight, stepped forward. With a surface-level smile, he said, "Well done, Ms. Parker. It seems you've provided our guests with a memorable culinary experience." A round of agreement rippled through the crowd. But as Layla locked eyes with him, she couldn't help but notice the hint of annoyance behind his polished facade. Was it possible he'd hoped she'd falter? Or was he merely flustered that she overshadowed him at his own gala? She couldn't be sure. Nevertheless, she walked away from that demonstration triumphant. For once, she didn't feel like a nameless servant in the corners of Damien's mansion. She felt like a real chef, forging her own path. News of Layla's impromptu demonstration spread quickly through the gala. People approached her throughout the evening, requesting recipes or praising her for the flavors. The socialite who had suggested the live demonstration insisted on exchanging contact details so she could hire Layla for a private event. A food blogger snapped pictures of the pastries, raving about their perfect presentation. Layla moved through the crowd with an air of confidence she hadn't felt before. Even her fear of stumbling over words waned as she realized that her passion for cooking made conversations flow naturally. She regaled them with stories of how she first learned to bake in her mother's humble kitchen, and how she loved experimenting with new flavor combinations. At one point, the older food critic who had earlier praised her approached with a notepad in hand. "May I inquire about your culinary background in more detail?" he asked, flipping through his notes. "I'm fascinated by your technique." Layla smiled politely. "I graduated from a modest culinary program in the city. I focused on baking and pastry, then worked at a couple of restaurants before taking this job at Mr. Foster's residence." He scribbled something down. "And your style, it seems to blend classical French pastry with unique flavor twists. Are you self-taught in that regard?" She nodded. "I read a lot, experiment often, and gather inspiration from different cuisines. My grandmother was Greek, and she taught me the magic of combining sweet with aromatic herbs." He perked up. "Greek influences? Fascinating. I can sense a nuanced warmth in your desserts." Just as they were chatting, another voice chimed in, a suave man in a tailored suit, who introduced himself as the manager of a trendy downtown restaurant. "Ms. Parker, you have exceptional talent. If you ever consider leaving private service, I'd love to discuss opportunities with you." Layla tried to keep her composure, but inside she was bursting. 2 months ago, she was just another cook, invisible in Darian Foster's household. Now, influential people were praising her creativity and offering potential paths to recognition. She collected business cards, each one a tangible sign of hope for her future. When the formal portion of the gala ended, the orchestra took up a lively tune. Some guests wandered to the dance floor, while others refilled their drinks. Layla discreetly slipped away, retreating to the kitchen to catch her breath. She couldn't wipe the smile off her face as she leaned against the counter, replaying the praise in her mind. In that private moment, she thought of her brother, Chris, and how far they'd both come. It was as if all her struggles, the early mornings, the late nights, the scoldings from Darian, culminated in this night, a triumph that proved her worth. She also felt a pang of yearning for her dream bakery. Perhaps, just perhaps, it wasn't as far away as she had once feared. Catherine soon found her, practically bouncing with excitement. "Layla, everyone out there is talking about your flambéed peaches. They can't get enough." She clapped her hands together. "You were amazing." Layla laughed, still slightly breathless. "I'm in shock. I never expected this kind of reaction." "Well, you deserve it." Catherine's expression turned sly. And Mr. Foster, well, I don't think he expected it either. Layla frowned slightly. He seemed tense. But I guess he got what he wanted, a successful gala. Catherine shrugged. Sure, but I think you stole the show. Don't be surprised if he's a bit jealous. He usually likes to be the center of attention. They both laughed, though Layla felt a subtle tension return. In the back of her mind, she knew that as much as she tried to appease Darian, he might resent how she shone tonight. She forced the worry away, deciding to revel in this moment of success. Soon, some guests departed, while others stayed late into the night, chatting and sipping champagne. Eventually, the crowds thinned. Darian emerged from the ballroom, scanning the corridor until his gaze settled on Layla and Catherine. He beckoned Layla with 2 fingers. "Ms. Parker," he said, once she approached. "Walk with me." She motioned for Catherine to go ahead, then followed Darian down a quiet hallway. He led her to the empty dining room, where the smell of expensive perfumes and cologne still lingered in the air. He paused near a grand table, turning to face her with an unreadable expression. "That dessert station was well received," he began, his tone guarded. "And your flambé performance certainly kept them entertained." Layla swallowed, bracing herself. "Thank you, Mr. Foster. I'm glad it went smoothly." He ran a hand through his hair, which was slightly disheveled after a long evening. "I must say," he continued, voice clipped, "you exceeded expectations." He paused, as though the words pained him. The guests were impressed. "I've had multiple inquiries about you." Layla fought down a surge of pride, trying to appear humble. "I appreciate the opportunity, sir." His jaw tightened. "That's all for tonight. Continue the cleanup and return to regular duties tomorrow." He turned to leave, but hesitated. For a fleeting second, Layla thought he might say something kind, like, "Well done." Instead, he simply nodded curtly, then walked away. Alone in the dimly lit dining room, Layla exhaled, a wave of conflicting emotions crashing over her. She sensed a flicker of grudging respect in Damian's words, but also something else, resentment? Territorialism? Whatever it was, he had once again withheld any genuine praise, offering only the faintest nod. But tonight, she wouldn't let his aloofness tarnish her triumph. She returned to the kitchen and tackled the after-event cleanup alongside the rest of the staff. They were all tired, but a festive camaraderie hung in the air, buoyed by the gala's success. Catherine teased Layla about how the guests might flock to her new bakery if she ever opened one. Another staff member asked for lessons on flambeing fruit. When the last champagne flute was washed and dried, Layla finally trudged to her room. It was nearly 3 a.m., and exhaustion shrouded her. Yet she felt more alive than she had in years. She climbed into bed, gazing at the moonlight spilling through the thin curtains. Her mind was a swirl of possibilities, of new horizons that might open from the connections she'd made tonight. Just before sleep claimed her, she whispered into the darkness, "I did it. And I'll do it again. This is just the beginning." In the days following the gala, a strange shift permeated the mansion. Word of Layla's performance had spread, and it seemed like everyone, staff and visitors alike, viewed her with new respect. The kitchen became a hub of quiet curiosity. Staff members would stop by more often, complimenting her food or asking culinary questions. Catherine teased that she'd become a mini-celebrity within the household. Yet the most surprising change came from Darian Foster himself. While he remained outwardly formal, there were subtle differences in how he interacted with Layla. He no longer barked at her for minor issues, nor did he leave snide notes complaining about seasoning. Instead, he made occasional, almost polite requests. The shift was small, but noticeable. One afternoon, she found him in the kitchen, examining the dessert pastries she had prepared for a small gathering of his inner circle. He stood with his hands behind his back, studying the arrangement without the usual look of disinterest or disapproval. Layla paused, wiping her hands on her apron. "Is everything to your liking, Mr. Foster?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. They look fine." Layla's eyebrows shot up in mild surprise. A compliment, albeit short and to the point. She resisted the urge to grin. Thank you. He cleared his throat, as though uncomfortable. That business partner from the gala, the older man in the group, he was quite taken with your flambéed dish. He mentioned it in one of our calls. Told me it was one of the highlights of the night. A flush of satisfaction warmed Layla's cheeks. That's good to hear. Darian glanced around the kitchen, then settled his gaze on her. Listen, I realize my expectations can be demanding, but I do appreciate what you do here. He paused, visibly searching for the right words. You're talented. Layla blinked, both stunned and touched. It was the closest thing to an apology or heartfelt praise she'd received from him. She decided to push her luck a bit. Thank you, Mr. Foster. It means a lot. He nodded curtly, then made a beeline for the door, as if the conversation had taxed him. She watched him leave, her head spinning. That short exchange felt monumental compared to their previous interactions. Perhaps the gala had not only shifted the guests' perception of her, but also began to thaw the icy barrier between her and Darian. A week later, Darian did something even more unexpected. He invited her to his study. Smith delivered the message in person, politely informing her that Mr. Foster wanted to speak with her at 4 p.m. She arrived promptly, heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and curiosity. The study was a spacious room, lined with shelves of leather-bound books and awards from Damien's various business ventures. A large window offered a sweeping view of the estate grounds. Darian stood behind his desk, going over some documents. He motioned for her to sit. So, he began, tapping a pen against the table. There's a significant conference in the city next month. Top CEOs, investors, and influencers will be there. I plan to attend. Layla nodded, unsure of where he was going with this. Understood. He shifted his weight, folding his arms. They're hosting a charity dinner on the second night, and I've been asked if I'd like to feature my personal chef to showcase a tasting menu. She inhaled sharply. Your personal chef? He raised an eyebrow. Yes, Ms. Parker. I believe that's you, correct? Her cheeks grew warm. Yes, sir, of course. I wasn't sure if you were referencing me or someone else. He gave a slight roll of his eyes, but not unkindly. You're the only cook here. Now, the question is, are you interested in the opportunity? It's a chance to gain more exposure, though it would mean traveling and working off-site in a rented kitchen. It'll be stressful. Layla's pulse raced. The opportunity to cook at a high-profile charity dinner could be a springboard for her career. But was it a genuine offer from Darian, or just another test? Regardless, she couldn't afford to turn it down. I'd be honored to, Mr. Foster. Thank you. He nodded, expression still guarded. I'll have my assistant forward the details. You'll need to plan a tasting menu of about 6 courses. Use the time to finalize your ideas, coordinate with the event staff, and handle logistics for transporting ingredients. Though his tone was professional, there was a glimmer in his eyes, something like cautious approval. As they discussed dates and logistics, Layla found herself genuinely appreciating the conversation. For the first time, they were speaking almost as equals, united in the pursuit of a shared goal. When she left the study, her mind whirled with excitement. A public charity dinner, where she'd be front and center, preparing a 6-course meal for some of the city's most influential people. A year ago, she might have cowered at the thought. Now, after the gala's success, she felt ready to embrace the challenge. In the weeks that followed, she dove into planning mode. Every spare moment saw her researching dishes, testing new flavor combinations, perfecting plating techniques. She scoured cookbooks, watched online tutorials, and tapped into her own creative reservoir. Each day, she refined her recipes, occasionally letting Catherine or the other staff sample bite-sized portions. Darian maintained a watchful distance, occasionally inquiring about her progress. He offered few direct suggestions, leaving most creative decisions to her. This newfound autonomy emboldened Layla. She knew if she succeeded, it would validate her talent in a larger arena. Meanwhile, Chris called her with updates on his college applications. He'd been admitted into his dream program and was excitedly preparing for orientation. Layla felt an immense sense of relief and pride. Her sacrifices here were making a tangible difference in his life. She shared her own big news about the upcoming charity dinner, and Chris responded with unbridled enthusiasm. "You're going to kill it, sis," he shouted. She laughed, though her nerves fluttered, hoping he was right. As the departure date for the conference neared, Darian summoned her again, this time to his private lounge, a quieter space adjacent to his bedroom suite. She found him seated in an armchair, reading what appeared to be a financial report. He set it aside when she arrived. "How are things shaping up for the menu?" he asked, gesturing for her to sit in a matching armchair. Layla produced a small binder with sketches of her dishes. "I've planned a progression from light to rich. Starting with a refreshing amuse-bouche featuring citrus and seafood, moving toward a main course that highlights local, sustainable meat, then finishing with a decadent dessert that pairs bold chocolate with bright berry flavors." He leaned forward, scanning her notes. "This is thorough." He tapped a page. "Your dessert design. It's impressive. Is it inspired by what you did at the gala?" She nodded. "Partially. I've built on the idea of dramatic presentation, but refined the flavors further." He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Good. The conference attendees appreciate innovation." He paused, then added, "Make sure the plating is top-notch. Presentation is half the battle at these events." She smirked slightly, building on the confidence she'd gained. "I'm aware. After all, I served a flambé at your gala." Damien's lips twitched as though he were stifling a grin. "Indeed." The conversation concluded with him wishing her luck. As she stood to leave, his voice softened. "Ms. Parker, I meant what I said. You have genuine talent. Don't squander it." Her heart fluttered. A wave of warmth suffused her. "Thank you, Mr. Foster. That means a great deal." She left the lounge, a swirl of emotions in her chest. Gratitude, pride, and an emerging respect for the man who, despite his arrogance and harshness, was offering her a platform to shine. Perhaps the turning point they both needed had finally arrived. The conference was a whirlwind. Held in a luxurious downtown hotel, it spanned several days of panels, networking events, and executive meetings. The charity dinner took place on the second night, in a grand banquet hall decked out with dazzling chandeliers and elaborate floral centerpieces. Layla arrived at the hotel's industrial kitchen early in the morning, accompanied by a small team of assistants Darian had hired specifically for the event. They unloaded boxes of fresh produce, herbs, and specialty ingredients, carefully labeled and prepped. She set up her station, checking each piece of equipment, ensuring everything was arranged just right. Despite the anxiety simmering in her stomach, she felt an electric anticipation. This was her show. Darian was occupied with his conference duties, leaving her to command the kitchen. She mapped out a timeline: amuse-bouche at 7:15 p.m., salad course at 7:30 p.m., soup at 7:45 p.m., main course at 8 p.m., palate cleanser at 8:30 p.m., dessert at 8:45 p.m. She double-checked plating instructions with her assistants, emphasizing precision and artistry. As the clock crept toward dinner time, her nerves built. She reminded herself of everything she'd overcome, from being dismissed as the help to orchestrating a gala success. Now she was on the cusp of serving a multi-course gourmet meal to some of the world's most influential people. The magnitude was daunting, but she steadied herself with the reminder of her passion for cooking. When the dinner began, the amuse-bouche went out flawlessly, tiny spoons of citrus-marinated shrimp with a ginger-lime foam. The servers returned with glowing reports, guests praising the bright flavors. Layla's confidence soared, fueling her as she expedited the next courses. She moved through the courses like a choreographed dance, orchestrating each plating with careful, creative flourishes. The soup, a creamy parsnip velouté with a hint of truffle, elicited murmurs of delight. The main course, a tender lamb medallion served with rosemary juice and roasted vegetables, brought near silence as the guests savored every bite. By the time dessert approached, her adrenaline was in overdrive. She unveiled a show-stopping chocolate sphere, delicately placed over a bed of fresh berries and crumble. Warm caramel sauce was poured tableside, melting the sphere to reveal a hidden mousse center. The wow factor was immediate. Gasps, applause, cameras flashing. Layla glimpsed the reaction from the kitchen doorway, her heart nearly bursting with pride. After the meal, as guests mingled and made their way back to their rooms or after parties, She took a moment to sink onto a stool in the kitchen, panting with relief. Her assistants congratulated her, exchanging high fives. They had nailed it. Darian appeared, leaning against the doorframe. His tie was loosened, and a slight smile played on his lips. "Parker," he said. "Well done. The dinner was a success." She looked up, wiping sweat from her brow. "Thank you, Mr. Foster. I'm glad everything went smoothly." He walked over, offering her a bottle of water. "Word of mouth is spreading fast. People are raving about your dessert, especially the dramatic presentation. Some even said they'd love to hire you for private events." Layla took the bottle, sipping gratefully. "That's wonderful news." He studied her for a beat. "I'm proud of the work you've done. You've grown since you started at my house. And I recognize that your talents might outgrow your position under my employment." Her eyes widened. "Mr. Foster, are you—" He raised a hand, cutting her off but not unkindly. "I'm not firing you, Parker. I'm acknowledging reality. You have the potential to be more than a live-in cook." He glanced away, almost awkwardly. "If you ever decide to pursue something bigger, I might be willing to invest." The magnitude of his offer hit her like a freight train. Darian Foster, the once aloof entrepreneur who treated her like an accessory in his household, was now offering to fund her ventures. She struggled to find words. I don't know what to say." "Just think about it," he said, clearing his throat. "You have my card. Don't expect me to play mentor, but I can help you with the business side if you decide to open that bakery you've hinted at." She felt tears prick her eyes, though she held them back. "Thank you," she managed. "I'll consider it." That night, she called Chris as soon as she got back to her hotel room, practically bursting with excitement. "He offered to invest in me," she whispered, the phone pressed to her ear. "Darian Foster wants to help me open a bakery someday." Chris hooped on the other end, telling her how proud he was and how all her hard work was finally paying off. After the call ended, Layla stared out at the city lights from her hotel window. The path before her was not yet clear, but it was lit with possibilities she hadn't dared to imagine mere months ago. The next morning, the conference wrapped up. Layla and Darian returned to his mansion, resuming their old roles. She was still his cook, and he still oversaw a staff that carried out his every whim. But an unspoken understanding now existed between them. Respect had replaced scorn. A sense of mutual recognition bridged the gap that once felt insurmountable. It was only a matter of time before that dynamic shifted altogether. Several months passed, bringing subtle transformations to Darian Foster's household. Layla continued to serve as the live-in cook, but she also spent her free hours meeting with potential clients and scoping out real estate for a possible bakery location. True to his word, Darian offered occasional guidance, introducing her to commercial real estate agents he trusted, reviewing her draft business plans, and explaining how to handle licensing and permits. Their interactions evolved from stiff commands and curt acknowledgments to cooperative dialogues. There were still moments of tension. Darian was, by nature, precise and demanding. But now, he channeled that energy into advising Layla rather than belittling her. The staff also noticed the shift in mood. Catherine joked that the once frozen mansion felt a few degrees warmer. Layla began saving every spare penny, funneling part of her salary into a small business fund. She dreamt of a bakery brimming with color, brightly decorated cakes, pastries adorned with edible flowers, and a comforting aroma of fresh bread that wafted out onto the street. She envisioned a corner section for local artists to display their work, fostering a sense of community she never quite felt in Damian's cavernous home. One day, after months of planning, the opportunity arose. A charming storefront near a bustling market district went up for rent. It was small, in need of renovation, but had big windows and good foot traffic. Layla's heart thumped as she toured the space. She could already see the potential: a display case near the entrance, a cozy seating area by the windows, a neat kitchen in the back outfitted with ovens and mixers. With Damian's financial backing and her own savings, she secured the lease. Tears filled her eyes as she signed the papers, the pen trembling slightly in her hand. This was it, her leap into independence, her future laid bare on a rental contract. Opening day approached after weeks of renovations. Layla left Damian's employment on cordial terms, They agreed she would remain as a consultant for his occasional events, but her primary focus would be the bakery. The staff threw her a small farewell party in the mansion's garden, with Catherine leading the charge. Even Smith cracked a rare smile, presenting Layla with a parting gift, a high-quality set of chef's knives, each engraved with her initials. Darian, true to his style, didn't attend the informal party. But he sent a note, along with a small envelope. Inside were keys to a new, top-of-the-line industrial oven he had purchased for her bakery. The note read, "Layla, consider this a final investment in your talent. Make something extraordinary. D.F." Layla's throat tightened with emotion. She remembered the day she first interviewed at the mansion, how fearful and desperate she was. Now, she was stepping out as an entrepreneur with the support, albeit in his uniquely distant way, of the very man who once tried to keep her in her place. On the bakery's opening day, sunlight spilled onto the sidewalk as Layla unlocked the door. The sign above the entrance bore her chosen name for the shop, Layla's Flourish, a nod to both her floral decorations and the personal growth she'd experienced. Friends and family arrived, including Chris, who was beaming with pride. Locals from nearby shops peeked in, curious about the new pastry haven. Throughout the morning, customers trickled in to sample croissants, muffins, and slices of cake. By midday, word spread quickly through social media, and a steady crowd filled the small interior. Layla, wearing her new apron and chef's hat, bounced between taking orders, assembling pastry boxes, and greeting well-wishers. Her cheeks hurt from smiling, but her heart soared. Amid the bustle, she spotted a familiar figure walk through the door, Damian Foster. Gone was his usual suit. He wore a casual blazer, looking almost out of place. He offered a small nod when he caught her eye. Layla excused herself from the register, approaching him with a mix of excitement and gratitude. "Mr. Foster," she said, voice slightly above the hum of the crowd. "Welcome to Layla's Flourish." He glanced around, nodding at the cheerful decor and the display cases bursting with colorful confections. "It looks impressive." His gaze landed on a tiered cake in the window, topped with sugar flowers. "Yours." She nodded with a grin. "All of it." He paused, then spoke in a quieter tone. "You've done well, Parker. Hard to believe how far we've come since that job interview." A laugh escaped her. "I know. I'm grateful. Thank you for everything." He shifted slightly, as if uncomfortable with emotional displays. "I'd like to sample something. What do you recommend?" Her eyes sparkled. "I have just the thing." She led him to the display case, pointing out a slice of her newest creation, a lavender and lemon cake layered with honey-infused buttercream. He purchased a slice, ignoring her half-hearted attempts to offer it for free. They found a small table, and he took a bite. His expression, typically unreadable, melted into approval. "This is very good," he finally said, warmth creeping into his voice. Layla felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She quickly blinked them away. "I'm glad you like it." They sat for a moment, the noise of the bustling bakery surrounding them. It was surreal. Layla, once a cook stuck in a stifling mansion, now a proud owner of a flourishing bakery. Damian, once the aloof and arrogant boss, now a supportive patron. Their relationship had transformed into one of mutual respect, a testament to how drastically life could change when talent and opportunity collided. Eventually, Damian rose. He slipped on his blazer, leaving a generous tip in the jar. "Well, Parker, Layla, best of luck. If you ever decide to expand, give me a call. I know a few people who could help." She stood, placing a hand over her heart. "Thank you again for seeing something in me. I won't forget it." He nodded. "Nor will I forget what you did with the opportunity." And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving Layla with a gentle smile dancing on her lips. As the day wore on, the bakery buzzed with excitement. Chris helped at the counter, grinning from ear to ear. Friends, family, and new customers alike raved about the pastries, the atmosphere, and the story of the determined young baker who'd risen from being the help in a billionaire's mansion to owning her own thriving business. By the time Layla locked up that evening, she was physically spent but emotionally fulfilled. In the quiet shop, she ran her hand across the display case, reflecting on the journey that brought her here. She remembered the nights she'd cried in her cramped staff room, feeling invisible and belittled. She remembered Damian's biting criticisms and the sting of his dismissals. But she also remembered the spark of creativity she never let die, the unwavering support from Chris, and the sense of pride she felt every time someone enjoyed her food. Ultimately, what was meant to embarrass her, being put on display at a lavish gala, became her launching pad. She had turned humiliation into an opportunity, forging a future where her culinary gifts could shine. Damian's attempt to diminish her ended up amplifying her spirit, leading her to a triumph that was beyond even her wildest dreams. In that peaceful moment, she allowed herself one last indulgence, imagining the future. She saw Layla's flourish expanding, perhaps opening a second location, maybe hosting cooking workshops. She saw a life filled with creativity, joy, and perseverance. All of it was possible because she had believed in her talent, even when others doubted her, and refused to be defined by someone else's scorn. Drawing in a final, contented breath, she switched off the lights. The bakery's neon sign glowed softly against the darkening sky. Layla's flourish was here to stay, a shining testament to rising above humiliation, finding one's passion, and proving that true talent, fueled by determination, can transform even the harshest circumstances into the sweetest success. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.